This is
Phil Brandel.
It's 9:11. Do you remember the old gambling tagline, gamble responsibly? Now we hear slogans like chances are you're about to lose and what are you really gambling with? But gambling revenue went up 9% for the month of December in Queensland compared to 2023. So how much of a difference are those taglines actually making? Martin Thomas is the CEO for the Alliance of Gambling Reform and he joins me now. Good morning, Martin.
Morning, Phil. Thanks for having me on.
Is it surprising to see December gambling revenue up 9% just in Queensland?
No, unfortunately. And to answer that question around the taglines, look, the taglines are a little bit better. At least we're not blaming people, not blaming the victims of gambling. But we need to do far, far more. Australians nationally every year lose $32 billion. And it's just a phenomenal amount of money. We're the biggest losers in the world when it comes to gambling.
So we've got those taglines, we've got bans on gambling ads, we've got the gambling helpline, we've got self-exclusion zones, the list goes on and on and on. But we keep spending more and more month on month. Why is that?
Well, we don't actually have bans on gambling advertising. That's a big one. So I guess if we look at online gambling for a second, that is growing at a staggering rate. It's doubling every 5 years, and it's young people, 18 to 25, that are really getting into sports gambling on their phone. It's changing the way we're watching sport and following sport, and we're actually creating a whole new generation of young people that are going to be groomed for gambling by the sector. So we need greater regulation and a full gambling ad ban, which was a recommendation of a parliamentary inquiry, which the government has now sat on for more than 18 months and hasn't responded, would be a terrific start because we have 1 million gambling ads on our TVs and on our screens every year. And it's people, I guess companies spend millions of dollars advertising because it works. It makes people gamble.
Do you think changes to the slogans or changing to gambling ad times or even total ban on gambling ads would make a difference? Do you think that spend would slow down?
Look, we believe it would if it was a total gambling ad ban. If it included television, online, if it included not having betting ads on in stadiums and on the jumpers of football players, that would make a difference. And the overseas evidence has shown that. And even like the Premier League in the UK has started to move towards banning signage and advertising on players' jumpers. It would make a huge difference. A limited ban would not, because it really just screams a loophole for companies to plough in. And we've tinkered with the times in which gambling ads can run, and the number of ads actually increased. So we don't see that as a solution at all.
I'm chatting with Martin Thomas, CEO of the Alliance for Gambling Reform, talking about how the spend on gambling went up 9% just in Queensland alone for the month of December. Do Queenslanders or Australians gamble more over the holiday period? Is that why we saw that spike in December? Were people on holidays or bored, or what was? Because there was no NRL, there was no AFL.
Yeah, look, I think it is a little bit that, but I think also we can't underestimate the cost of living crisis that's happening. And it may seem in the cold light of day a little bit ironic, but people are more likely to gamble when they're under financial stress. When people are under enormous financial stress, sometimes it impairs their decision making. They see the opportunity for a payout, and they start to gamble. And once they start gambling, they start to chase their losses, and it spirals out of control. In terms of online gambling, because you have that phone in your pocket every single day, and we can't live without our phones these days, it's no longer that you have to go out to the casino or a pub to gamble. You can do it 24/7, and that makes a huge difference. I think the other thing around poker machines, and I think the revenue increases you're talking about also did relate extensively to poker machine venues. What we're finding is once people get in a zone and once they start to gamble, time doesn't mean anything. Cognitive decision-making is impaired. And some states, like Victoria, are moving to what they describe as a cashless carded system, where people can predetermine how much they want to lose at the beginning of the week. And then once they reach that loss limit, they're stopped from gambling for a few days until the next week comes around. That's something the Queensland government could definitely do and would make an enormous difference.
Well, just looking at that idea of that cashless limit, how much, taking that one step further, how much does personal responsibility play in all of this?
Well, look, certainly it plays some part, but you've got to understand that the gambling industry spends billions of dollars, I guess, overseas as well, on making their machines and their products addictive. They aggressively pursue people that try to stop gambling. So they provide free spins. They provide, it's not unusual, we've heard of people to opt out of gambling, not gamble for a while, and the company to ring them up and say, we'll put $4,000 in your account. If you match it, it's all yours. And they have their whole business model, I guess, is based on the fact that they want as many people to gamble, more than they can afford. The phrase in the industry sometimes is gambling to oblivion. I think when we have a system that's so predatory, I think we have to look at that, I guess, more than necessarily personal responsibility. We need, such as with tobacco and alcohol, it's a legal product. We don't mind people gambling. People should have the choice to gamble, but we need greater protections.
Can we just move away from that? We're still going to talk about gambling, but on a completely different note. What do you make about these news reports that are coming out at the moment that there are several casinos in Australia that are about to go financially broke?
Yeah, look, we think it's quite sad. I mean, obviously, whenever a company goes broke, there are staff that are affected and the community's affected. We certainly don't applaud, the potential collapse at Star Casino. But what we do say is that these casinos have been appallingly run. Several Royal Commissions have already pointed that out. And if we come to potential government bailouts, there should be a whole number of local businesses and other businesses that really serve the public that should be front of the queue for any government bailouts. There certainly should not be any government bailout for a casino that's run into troubles.
Do you think
the other thing that the government could do is not abandon the staff that may be made redundant, but perhaps offer packages to retrain them in other areas.
There has been talk that the state government should take over the running of the casino and that way they own it and get all of the revenue from it. What do you make of that idea?
Well, I think it's a conflict because the government's responsibility is to protect its citizens and to ensure that its citizens can thrive. I think it's just a horrendous conflict of interest. Already, state governments particularly are addicted to the revenue that gambling brings into them, but ironically, it brings in a fraction of what it creates in terms of social damage. So while the government may get skim off the top with a bit of tax in terms of poker machine revenue, etc., we're seeing huge increases in mental health, in domestic violence, even in suicide. That's all linked to gambling harm, which is costing the taxpayers billions of dollars in hospitals and police, in all sorts of resources. So I don't think a government takeover of casinos is a good idea. I think it'd be a complete conflict of interest and we'd all be poorer for it.
We'll leave it there. Martin Thomas, thank you so much.
Really appreciate your interest. Thanks.